Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and good morning. It is Tuesday, February the 9th, 5:30 in the morning, Calgary, Alberta time. It's bright and early, and I'm just having some coffee as usual. I'm trying to wake up. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another on blogtalkradio.com, internet streaming radio. It's live, and we'll be on about 15 minutes here this morning, and continuing on with our topic from yesterday, which was healing emotional and psychological trauma, symptoms, treatment, and recovery from www.helpguide.org. It's a great article. I really like it. Trauma is something that affects, nearly everyone can have a traumatic experience in their lives, and it goes right along with stress and all the other issues that people face on a daily basis and have to walk through. You have to keep going, and we have to work, and we have to look after our families. We have to look after ourselves, and a lot of times it's difficult with situations in our lives. When things have happened in the past that just seem to be so stressful, or things that are going on right now in someone's life that's just so stressful and traumatic. It's good to talk about this stuff. I really think it is, because so many people are suffering out there from all kinds of things, illnesses and job loss and death in the family and abuse, and it's just if there's ways to cope, and there's ways to be able to take a look at it for what it really is, and then reach out and get some help, So I'm so glad that you're here. And this is not a professional show, and I don't have any professional certificates or counseling certificates or anything. And so please listen at your own discretion. I just sit and read information that I find and share it with people so that they can know that they can just go onto these websites and take a look for themselves and see that there is some great help out there. And there's all kinds of links on these websites that link to other great resources. So that's why I really suggest these websites. I go on them quite a bit and spend a lot of time looking around, and I see that there's all kinds of workshops, and there's telephone numbers, and just ways people can get help, right? Instead of suffering alone and in silence and just sitting by yourself. I know I did that for years. Our family did that for years, and it's a sad way to live. And I could have reached out a long time ago and got a lot further than I did. It took me a long time to get where I am today, and that's why I just want everyone to know that they're not alone, first of all, and that there's people out there that really do care. And if you haven't run into them, you have to keep reaching out and searching for them. And if you're just a young person and you're just happen to be listening on a player somewhere, please make sure that you get someone to listen to this with you, because the subjects that I cover really deal with abuse and traumatic things, right? So you want to make sure you have someone with you that can sort of, with a good head on their shoulders, that can kind of help you if you have questions, or if you just feel uncomfortable about the topic. If anyone really feels uncomfortable with the topics that's covered that day, please don't listen. Just listen at your own discretion, because I don't want anybody to be triggered or to feel bad about the show. It's just it's an educational awareness and prevention talk that a lot of people find very uncomfortable. So if it's uncomfortable for you, make sure that you do just turn it off, because it's not worth getting upset over. And you can always check back and see what we're talking about next week, and if that's something that you feel safe listening to, then you can tune in. So we'll get started. We've only got about 10 minutes. And this article is great. Healing Emotional and Psychological Trauma, Symptoms, Treatment, and Recovery from www.helpguide.org. And it says, what is emotional and psychological trauma? And that's, we went through that yesterday. And, trauma experiences often involve a threat to life or safety. Any situation that leaves you feeling overwhelmed and alone can be traumatic, right? That's what it doesn't even have to involve physical harm, they said. And it could be something that just happened unexpectedly, like an accident, or that you were unprepared for, or that we felt powerless to prevent. Things that happen repeatedly, or just living in a certain neighborhood, even like a crime-ridden neighborhood, can be traumatic. And falls and sports injuries, surgeries, things like that. And we know people experience these things all the time. And sometimes multiple, multiple experiences, and then it just makes it that much worse, right? And so there's childhood trauma. It increases the risk of future trauma. It says a childhood trauma results from anything that disrupts a child's sense of safety and security, which includes an unstable or unsafe environment, separation from a parent, serious illness, sexual, physical, or verbal abuse, domestic violence, neglect, and bullying. All these things are traumatic in childhood, and there's so many children out there right now who are suffering with this, and they're going to experience in different ways the effects of this trauma. So it's just so important that we all know there's help out here for this, and there's people that can support us with all of this, right? And today I'm going to just keep reading on. Symptoms of emotional and psychological trauma. I'm just reading right from their page, and you can go right there and follow along if you'd like. Following a traumatic event, most people experience a wide range of physical and emotional reactions. These are normal reactions to abnormal events. The symptoms may last for days, weeks, or even months after the trauma ended. Emotional symptoms of trauma are, and they list off a bunch here, shock, denial, or disbelief. Then there's anger, irritability, and mood swings. There could be guilt, shame, or self-blame. And there could be feeling sad or hopeless. And confusion, difficulty concentrating, and anxiety and fear, withdrawing from others, and feeling disconnected or numb. And so those are some emotional symptoms of trauma that can, show up in a person when they, after having a traumatic event in their life, shock or mood swings, anger, self-blame, guilt or shame, right? Feeling sad or hopeless, confusion, anxiety and fear, withdrawing from others, and things like that. Yeah, I know. In my life, after I had a really bad car accident with friends in the car, I felt such guilt and really such self-blame that I had a hard time getting over that. I never got any professional care or anything, but it took me a long time to work through that, just because I'd hurt my friends, and that was not my intention ever to hurt anybody, and so I felt so extremely bad about it. But then I had car accidents in their cars, and so they were all, hey, we're even. So it was just terrible. It was just a bad scene. But this sort of thing can happen to people all the time, right? And then anxiety and fear, withdrawing from others, it can cause you to kind of feel disconnected and numb. So there's some real emotional symptoms that go along with trauma. Physical symptoms of trauma can be, and they list off here, insomnia or nightmares, being startled easily, racing heartbeat, aches and pains, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, edginess and agitation, and muscle tension, right? Just because you're tense, and so your muscles tense up, right? These symptoms and feelings typically last from a few days to a few months, gradually fading as you process the trauma. But even when you're feeling better, you may be troubled from time to time by painful memories or emotions, especially in response to triggers, such as an anniversary or the event or an image, sound, or situation that reminds you of the traumatic experience, right? So these things can kind of come back, excuse me, even though we might have kind of gotten over the whole thing. If something triggers it, then the memories kind of come back, and then we feel the same things that we felt. Maybe I don't, maybe not as intense, but it's still there, right? It's hard to get over this stuff, right? Grieving is normal following a traumatic event. It says whether or not a traumatic event involves death, survivors must cope with the loss, at least temporarily, of their sense of safety and security. The natural reaction to this loss is grief. Like people who have lost a loved one, trauma survivors go through a grieving process, and this process, while inherently painful, is easier if you turn to others for support. Take care of yourself and talk about how you feel. That is so important. Excuse me, I know that is so important. After experiencing something that's just so traumatic, right? It's really like grieving. It's like it's a loss, because it takes you to a place where your sense of safety and your security has been jeopardized, right? And so, in whatever way. So there is a grieving process, and it's kind of strange, but we do need to talk to people about it and not just suffer in silence with it, and actually allow ourselves to, especially if we have a good counselor or therapist, or I haven't never done that, but I might do that in the future. Someone who can really help us walk through that and gain some sense of control back in our lives, right? And just to learn that we just keep moving forward and keep walking it out, because it is so hard. I know you see people going through terrible things in the paper all the time. Even in our own personal lives, people are always going through, terrible things that happen in life events that just are so challenging and so really devastating to a lot of people. And we know that this is happening to people all the time. So it's just so sad. It says, when to seek professional help for emotional or psychological trauma. Recovering from a traumatic event takes time, and everyone heals at his or her own pace. But if months have passed and your symptoms aren't letting go, you may need professional help from a trauma expert. It's a good idea to seek professional help if you're having trouble functioning at home or work, suffering from severe fear, anxiety, or depression, unable to form close, satisfying relationships, experiencing terrifying memories, nightmares, or flashbacks, avoiding more and more things that remind you of the trauma, emotionally numb and disconnected from others, and using alcohol or drugs to feel better. So if we're doing any of those things, or a multiple bunch of those things, then you could pretty much bet that that some professional help would be needed. And that's the whole issue, is most people don't get that help, and it's just sad because they suffer in this depression and just sadness, right? And make sure you reach out, even to a good friend. Reach out to someone you trust and who you trust and who you can talk to, and because it's so important to not suffer in silence like that. It's just so horrible, and there's so many people going through this, right? And we really need to reach out. And a lot of times people don't realize that you're having trouble. I know that's my case. Most people didn't realize at all my situation growing up as an abused child. Friends and stuff and people in my life now, like even in my 30s and 20s, really didn't know, because I had a really good way of being able to go to work, and because I had been dealing with this all my life, right? So I was able to pull it together all the time, no matter where I was. And then when I was on my own, that's when I would experience, the sadness and stuff. And it would be like a little cycle I would be on all the time. And in my own space, I had a hard time being very comfortable in my own space. And out with people and doing things, no problem, right? But in my own space, I really had a lot of trouble, because that's where that's where me is, and I have to face me. So that's the thing. It's so hard, and when you're on your own, it makes it even that much harder. And we know that this is the case for most people. And so, no one's going to really reach out to you if they don't see that there's a problem. And so you want to reach out. Make sure you reach out. You be the one to reach out to people and let someone know. Join one of these groups. I joined a bunch of groups because I love these people. They're so awesome. Most of them are my supporters, and I just thank you so much. And they are so helpful, because if I'm having a hard time dealing with something, they're there for me. I just have to let them know, hey, I'm having a bad day. This is not good. And they're right there for me. They can help. They've been there, and they know what it's like, right? So tomorrow we'll look at finding a trauma specialist and treatment for psychological and emotional trauma, and we'll take a look through the article, trauma recovery tips, all kinds of good stuff. I just wanted to read out a few references here. Chris Edwin Dahl, he's a good friend of mine. He is he's maybe a member and a founder of one of the Parents of Murdered Children groups, Survivor Support. And he's the Minnesota Hope Center is where he's at, and it's www.pomc.com/Minnesota. And this is a great resource for parents who have lost a child due to murder, and really it's actually for anyone who's lost anyone. If you've ever lost a sibling, if you've lost a friend or a brother, let's say, doesn't matter who it is, there's support there on those websites, www.pomc.com/Minnesota, and you can get to all the other national links and there's everything on there for people who are grieving. Such a great website and such a great guy. There is Linda Lee's. It's healtofeel.com. Survivors and Supporters and Recovery Resource Center, healtofeel.com. Linda Lee, she started 2 groups, and I belong to both of them, and they are just awesome. There's links and all kinds of references and videos, and it's a place to heal to feel. So I encourage you to check it out. Please do. And Suicide Crisis, www.suicide.org. Kevin Caruso. Suicide is never the answer, my friends. There is hope. You have to hang on. Get a hold of me if you need to. We got a few minutes left, and I'll be back on tomorrow morning, 5:30, for the One Child Survivor Another. And I hope that you will all just stay with us, because you have to stay with us and hang in there. And get a hold of me if you need more resources and stuff. Take care, everybody, and have a really good day. I really hope that you have a nice day.